Va'eira Avraham Yצחק Yaakov bekel shindal yud ושמי נודעתי להם. The word וארא carries two meanings. One is past tense, that Hashem appeared to the others. The other is present and ongoing, meaning that this level of revelation exists at all times, in every generation, and within every Jew. This is because, Chazal say, Ein kaiden avos ela l'shleisha, only Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are called avos. The inner meaning of this is that the avos are not just individuals of the past, their levels are an inheritance passed down to their children forever. With each person receiving it according to his own measure. This is why we say Avraham, because these qualities must exist in every Jew. Other lofty levels, even those of the Shvatim like Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, are certainly very high, but it is possible for a Jew not to have those levels revealed within him. The levels of the Avos, however, must be present in every Jew because they are the root and source of all Jewish souls. To understand how the Avos are revealed within every generation and within every person, we need to understand the nature of exile. Galus is compared to a pregnancy, while the Geula of Mashiach is compared to birth. As it says, when Jews are in distress, it says, Bo vanamad mishbar, mashber v'chayach ein leleda. And the suffering before Mashiach is explicitly called chav leleda, birth pangs. Even the Gul of Mitzrayim is described by Yechezkel using the imagery of birth. To understand this metaphor properly, we must first understand what pregnancy means. Chazal say that a fetus in his mother's womb is like a folded notebook, its head between its knees, its heels against its body. It eats what its mother eats, its mouth is closed, its navel is open. All the limbs exist, head, eyes, ears, but they do not function. The head does not think, the eyes do not see, and the ears do not hear. Even though the fetus is nourished from what the mother eats, the nourishment does not go through the mouth. It goes through the navel directly to the digestive organs, serving only to grow the body. During the 9 months, the body grows tremendously, but there is no breath of life yet. The organs of respiration exist, but they are inactive. Only when the child exits into the air of the world does it breathe. And Chazal say that the first cry is a sign of birth. Before that, there was no vitality flowing to the heart and brain. The head, together with the organs of respiration, are effectively lifeless, which is why the head rests between the knees. This is exactly the condition of the Jewish people in Galus, as it says, Hashemi Marim Yishag, and the Zohar explains that Hashem's revealed presence ascends upwards, as it says, Racham Mavak al Boneh Kienenu. And the Zohar explains that Kienenu refers to Hashem, that he is not revealed within his children. To the physical eye, the world appears to exist independently. Hearts become dull, eyes are sealed. People do not perceive the light of Hashem. Even the flow of Torah and mitzvahs, which are a nourishment for the soul, does not pass through the breathing organs, the heart and mind, to produce conscious awareness of Hashem, love of Hashem, or fiery yearning. Instead, it remains at the physical level of action alone. Mitzvahs nashim elamada, done coldly and habitually. This is the essence of spiritual exile. The ultimate perfection of the days of Mashiach is birth, the revelation of Hashem within the depths of the heart, as it says, V'nigel kavod Hashem v'ro kol basar, v'ki'ayin b'ayin yidu. This depends on our avodah during Galus, awakening the hidden love within the heart until it becomes an actual felt desire, a burning, thirsting longing for Hashem. This is the meaning of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The word Echad does not describe Hashem's essence, because Hashem is not one in a numerical sense. If that were the case, it should have said Hashem Yachid. One can still exist along with others, as Reuven was called one among 12 brothers. Rather, Echad means that Hashem's oneness is revealed within multiplicity in the 7 heavens and earth and the 4 directions. Even within division and structure, His unity shines, and all is nullified before Him. But Hashem Himself, in His essence, is far beyond this. Before Him, light and darkness are equal. Above and below are the same. He is not defined as filling worlds or surrounding worlds. Only His height, His radiance extends to heaven and earth. During Galus, Hashem's essence remains concealed. But even now, He gives us the power to draw His unity downward. This is why it says, Shema Yisrael. Yisrael alone has this ability. The entire purpose of existence is fulfilled here. When this unity is drawn into the 6 emotional directions of the soul, love, awe, compassion, it leads naturally to V'ahavta as Hashem with revealed passion. Love becomes so real and so intense that it provokes anger toward whoever poses it. Just as a person becomes furious at anything that contradicts something deeply rooted in his essence. And the core expression of love is joy. Joy in Hashem, joy in mitzvahs, Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha. This joy is compared to milk, as it says, just as a mother nurtures and delights a child through milk, causing its limbs to grow and strengthen, so too joy in mitzvahs enlarges and develops the soul. Milk comes from blood. The mother's food is transformed into blood, and the blood becomes milk. So too, effort, struggle, and refinement during Galus are transformed into nourishment that produces spiritual growth. To understand this in Avodas Hashem, the pasuk says, "As karbon ilachma leishai," that a carbon becomes kaviyachal Hashem's bread and nourishment, rising as reich nechayach laHashem. Chazal expressed this as Yisrael mefarnesin la'aviyim shabashamayim. The inner meaning of a carbon is that a person brings close lahakra of his own nefesh bahamas. At the time that he offers the animal with proper kavana and rusa deliba, he is offering himself, a willingness to give over his soul to Hashem, to remove ruach hatuma min haaretz, to nullify all foreign and negative thoughts, so that they are burned completely. Kolil al mizbech Hashem. Now that the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed and kavanos no longer offered, we are unable to fully uproot the dominance of the animal soul. Therefore, Chazal instituted tefillah connected to midden. This is why we say Baruch Atah Hashem, meaning even though we cannot complete our obligation to our own esirusa de lasata, there should still be an esirusa de leila, because chavetz chesed hu, from above the bracha is drawn down so that Hashem's name rests upon us in the sense of Elekeinu, that we become bottled to Him and drawn after Him with heart and soul. This is also the idea behind the Ramach mitzvahs essay. They are Ramach acts of drawing down revelation, causing Hashem's Elikos to dwell within the lower world. For Hashem, this is likened to nourishment. Like food strengthens the soul's connection to the body, in the same way, mitzvahs and good deeds become a throne and dwelling place, a dira b'tachteinim, when Hashem Echad is drawn down and revealed. At the same time, the Jew below receives vitality from this eating, sending life to the heart and mind so that he can love Hashem and serve Him with his full being. This illumination then rises further, becoming the level of dam hu nefesh, just as food transforms into blood, which is the life force of the body, so too through drawing Hashem's light into one's soul by fulfilling mitzvahs, so the person becomes a vessel for His presence until Hashem Echad rests and is revealed within the very point of the heart, touching the essence of the soul itself. When this happens, a person naturally becomes enraged at the evil within him, just as one becomes angry at anything that opposes something bound up with his very essence. This anger comes from the boiling of the blood, rishichas adam, because adam hu nefesh. This is the level of Yitzchak, and the meaning of zivchei Elekim ruach nishbara, the breaking of the spirit of the sitra achra. From here, one reaches the level of Yaakov, the attribute of compassion. When a person sees his soul trapped within its opposite, he cries out to Hashem from distress. Anger toward evil gives birth to mercy toward the soul. Where everything feels fine, compassion has no place. Rachmanos only arises when one senses brokenness, and this compassion becomes the preparation for joy once the heart settles on the truth, as explained in Tanya. Through this, true joy is born. Of joy in the supernal holiness, a joy that emerges from darkness. This is the meaning of and in the future, the crying will come from the ear, from vision, when then an everlasting compassion will awaken over the past, and that compassion itself will become the gateway to joy and Elekim longing for the closeness to Hashem. This is why in Shemini Esrei we say, Slach lanu ki chotanu, only after Kriyishma, before accepting Malchus Shemayim, a person cannot truly perceive his spiritual lack. But once he says Hashem Echad, when Hashem's unity is revealed within the lower realms, he sees his deficiency, that the light of Hashem is missing within him. Then his inner being trembles with mercy for himself, and only then can genuine joy follow. There is no greater joy than this. Joy that is not preceded by compassion is not real joy. Like a newborn child, first it cries, and only afterward is it given milk. The core joy and delight come from contemplating the greatness of Hashem and the fact that He chose us from all nations and brought us close to His service. This is why Chazal say that the breasts are located opposite the place of Bina. This explains meaning that through the revelation and flow of Shindal Yud related to Shadayim Ubrachas, the channels of milk that enlarge and develop the midas of love and awe, these are the avos as they are revealed after Hashem Echad has been born within the heart, bringing added light and joy and lighting in Hashem with simcha v'tov levav. But Ushmi Noda'ti lahem, Chazal say that Avraham fulfilled the entire Torah even before it was given. That means he fulfilled mitzvahs from love. Avraham established chakras, drawing Hashem's light downward so that Hashem Echad would be revealed, serving Hashem with love and delight. Yitzchak served with awe, pachad Yitzchak. Still, all of this is called the service of a servant, even when done with love and joy. A servant obeys his master, even gladly. Moshe Rabbeinu was different. He said, V'nachnu ma, absolute self-nullification. Therefore, the Torah was given through him as Dibur. Chazal say the Shekhinah spoke from his throat, because at that level there was no room for felt love or delight. Torah is pure unity beyond perception. Here there is no self-experiencing closeness. There is only bittul muchlot. Through Torah, Hashem's unity is drawn down as it existed before creation, where the world is literally nothing, no up, no down. This is deeper, not expression of feeling, but the force of governance and revelation itself. This is why Torah is not called the service of a servant. One speaks Torah, he is acting like a king. One speaks Torah, he is like a king issuing a decree. Man malka rabbanan and masnisa malkusa. He is not doing, he's declaring. Since the Torah was not yet given to the Avos, it says, ושמי הוויה לא נודעתי להם. Does not say lo נודעתי, that I did not inform them, but lo נודעתי, I myself was not known to them. Meaning, because ani ba'atzmi, the level of Yachid. This is what the Torah says. By contrast, in V'ahavta it says V'ahavta Hashem Elkecha. Torah flows from the level of Avaya, from Lifnei Avaya, from Anochi itself. Vidaber Elekim El Moshe Vayemer Elav Hani Hashem Va'eira El Abraham. This parsha is said as a direct response to what Moshe said earlier. Vayashav Moshe Vayemer Lama Harayesa. Why have you done evil to this people? Hashem answers him Va'eira, etc. We need to understand, how is this an answer to Lam Harayesa? And more generally, what is the meaning of the sin for which Galus came? The bondage of Chemer, Levanim. If it was already decreed in Bishbein Absarim that the Vavadam V'inu, why then the complaint of Lam Harayesa? The explanation begins with the pasuk B'yem says Hashem Elekim Eretz V'Shamayim. For the creation of heaven and earth, Hashem combined the name of Havaya with the name Elekim. These two names express two very different modes. Elekim is a plural expression, as it says Elekim Kadeshim, whereas Havaya is absolute oneness. The meaning is this: the pasuk says, "God lavaya ma'id with a glossy and shaker," and then asks, "When is Hashem called great?" Because Hashem's essence is infinite and unknowable, the term greatness cannot apply to Him directly. Greatness only applies to the hispashas, the outward radiance of His malchus, as it says, that expansion is not His essence, but only ziv ha'ara, the radiance of our insight, and ziv ha'shchina. It's like sunlight in relation to the sun itself. The light fills the world, but has no comparison whatsoever to the essence of the sun. So too, all the vitality that sustains upper and lower worlds from Reish Kol Dargan is only a radiance, and kula kamei kol ha'choshev. Now there are two expressions used in Tehillah, Marab Masacha and Magadla Masacha. Marab Masacha Hashem refers to the lower world and the physical creation. This world with its countless divisions, the Dim, Tameh, Chaim, Medaber. Each plant, each fruit has its own unique taste. Apples, almonds, walnuts, none identical to the other. Even among grasses, every blade has its own taste. That taste is spiritual, drawn from its mazel above, as Chazal say, all of this comes from the external flow of higher worlds, even from what's called Psulas as hinted in there are inner organs above that refine and filter vitality downward into the physical world. Chazal say not the Shmele or Vara'ara, it's not the Yamina or Shemayim. The earth receives from the left side, and this is Marab Masecha. But Magadla Masecha refers to the upper worlds, angels and souls, who delight in Hashem. Each soul experiences a distinct delight, no two alike. This explains the statement of Chazal, on the surface, why would a tzaddik in so many worlds? The answer is Char Mitzvah Mitzvah. The reward of a mitzvah is the drawing down of Einig Elyon, delighting in Zavashkina. Each mitzvah produces its own unique delight, and no tzaddik's inner experience is identical to another's. Each one has a different form of Ava V'yira, a different emotional and spiritual responsiveness. Therefore, each tzaddik requires his own world, a unique spiritual environment corresponding to his particular perception and delight in Hashem. The radiance of the Shekhinah contains infinite gradations of delight, and since it flows from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. This infinite diversification of vitality from our insight into countless levels, worlds, and distinct pleasures, each according to its capacity, is what's called Alikim, a plural name, because it expresses multiplicity and division in revealed flow. This is Hashem's greatness as it becomes known and recognized, that creation can experience His grandeur and delight in Him. As it says, L'achadei b'nei Hashem. That is why the pasuk says, a city is a collection of many houses. Houses are built from letters. As Sefer Yetzirah says, letters are channels of division and articulation. Just as thought divides into letters, likewise Hashem's greatness spreads outward into countless forms and degrees of delight across all worlds. And that revealed multiplicity is called Alikim. By contrast, Havaya is called Achad because it refers to the source of all being, Mekar Kol Havayas, before any division, before any revelation, before entering the city of multiplicity. Now, from the level of Alikim, there was drawn downward the quality of Yira, as it says, V'Alikim Asa Sheyiru Milfanov, and as Alikim Yira, and also as Hashem Lekechatira. For with respect to Leis Mashavat Tvisabei, no thought can grasp him, that's Havaya. But when his greatness expands to Elikim, the revealed effusion of his majesty causes awe to fall upon a person, an inner trembling in his basis. So too with love. Love is also drawn specifically through Elikim, as it says, Halaluhu b'gvoreisav halu karev gudli. And it says, meaning that in order for love to reach Havaya, which is beyond all grasp, one must first contemplate him as he is revealed to Elikim, through the perception of the greatness of Ayin Seif Baruch Hu as it spreads into creation. From there one can return upward and come to love Havaya, the level of the Leis Machshava, and this is accomplished through the Yichud Havaya Belikim. This is why the Pasuk says, Vidaber Lekim L'Meisha Vayemei Elav Hani Havaya, that through Elikim the name Havaya is revealed, and through this revelation came Vaera Avraham Bel Yitzchak, the birth of the attributes of Ava and Yira. This is also the meaning of Vayemer Seis Hashem Elikim Eretz V'Shemayim, the union of Havaya within Elikim, bringing revelation downward. However, it is known that love which rises from below is mainly in order to draw upon a person the higher love from above, which is the essential love. The others themselves are called Merkava, the chariot. Avram was a chariot for the higher love, as it says, Vayisa Avram halach v'nesaya, moving upward step by step until Hanegev, the supernal love, would rest upon him from above, with Avram serving as the chariot that carries it. This follows the principle of Asis L'Sata and Asis L'Ela. But what connects the infinite love from above, which is beyond all measure, to the arousal from below within the limited soul of a man, a created being? This is the meaning of Bekel Shin Dal Yud, the one who told his world, Misha Amr Ba'elam Dai. World refers to Ilam Chesed Yibana. The word Yibana implies construction, like building a house. Just as a house must be built in order to dwell within it, so too must the attribute of Chesed be built into a structured form in order for the soul to dwell within it. For supernal Chesed and the higher love are infinite and cannot serve as a dwelling for the soul unless they are constricted through many contractions, becoming a world, a structure with concealment. This building takes place through letters, Shtei Avon and Beinis, through many contractions and descent until Hashem will bestowing Shai Elemis, levels of Yesh, so that the souls can receive and delight in the radiance. This is the meaning of Sha'amar La'elam Dai, an act of constriction that enables Va'ir Avram, the revelation of supernal love, which is the primary objective. This is why it says V'yohavta Hashem Lakecha. V'yohavta is a causative verb. The main purpose is to draw down the higher love during Kriyishma. As it says, Ahavti Eschem Amar Hashem. This love must be drawn into Kol Avavcha, into both inclinations, even transforming the Yetzer Hara. When the higher level reaches it, the heart melts Kahimas Doinag, and the evil is subdued. This is accomplished in Kriyishma. From Sukkot to Zimra until Shema, the movement is love from below upward, but within Shema itself is the drawing down of the love from above. However, all this refers to the revealed union of Havaya Belikim when the attributes of love and awe are already manifest. But Shmi Havaya, the level of Havaya alone before it descends into attributes and revelation, Noda'ti lehem. This level is not revealed through arousal from below, but only through Asher Kedushan b'mitzvah itself. This includes the concept that HaKadosh Baruch Hu maniach tefillin, and especially Talmud Torah, which corresponds to all mitzvahs, for the source of Torah is far above. As the Zohar explains in Ma Yisrael L'Adam B'chol Amali, that Torah is labor Le'ela Mishmaya, higher than Shemesh Magan Havaya Elikim, meaning higher than the levels where Havaya is revealed through Elikim. This level is not revealed to the others, but only to Yisrael at the time of Matan Torah. Panim b'panim divrei Hashem through Anochim b'Shanachi. But for this revelation to occur, there first had to be a histalkos, an ascent upward. Its root above is mati v'lei mati, the dynamic of ratzei v'shuv. For there to be mati, there must first be lei mati. And according to the intensity of the later shuv, so is the depth of the initial ratzei. Therefore, there first had to be the time of exile and the domination of Egypt, a withdrawal of vitality upward. As it says, when Hashem is in a state of exalted remoteness, the nations also receive vitality through descent and gradation. But when he lowers himself to reveal within creation, then his Shechina only rests upon Yisrael. Thus, before Matan Torah, there was no distinction of hatred, since the nations also receive vitality. Only at Har Sinai, it's called Sinai because you're the Sinai la'ivdei kechavim. Therefore, when Moshe asked, Lama hariyetza, the answer was, now the time had come that that Havaya itself would become Elikim for you, dwelling upon you. This was also Yaakov's intent when he said, but for such a revelation to occur, there first had to be withdrawals, hence the exile of Egypt, lasting or due years corresponding to the magnitude of the later revelation. So too, in the final exile of Edom, the length of the Galus corresponds to the intensity of the greater revelation. For Ayin Ba'ayin Yiru, even greater than at Sinai, where the revelation was heard rather than seen. The first level Elkim, the revealed drawing down of the attributes is called B'chol V'Avchem, but the revelation of Havaya alone is called B'chol Nafshchem. This is the total attachment of the soul, Chabad b'Chabad, thought and speeches, and Vasten Devarim b'Ficha, like Shechina with the best with the G'rein Shel Moshe and Vidibar Tabam. ויאמר השם אל משה ואל אהרן לאמר חולו כך אז מטך והשלך לפני פרעה יהי לסן חולו עד ויבלע מטי אהרן as מטייסם. Hashem says to Moshe and Aaron, take your staff and throw it before Pare, and it will become a tana. And at the end, Aaron's staff swallowed their staffs, become a snake. To understand this, we have to understand what this mata is and why it turns into a nachash, and afterwards turns back into a mata, and why this was the very first nefesh shown to Pare before all 10 makas. First it says, V'yanat left Mitzrayim, and Chazal say they left Mitzrayim like a matzula with no fish, meaning they extracted all the nitzitis that had fallen there from the Shvir Sakelim until Mitzrayim was emptied of them, not leaving even one spark behind. So what are these nitzitis and what does it mean to elevate them? The idea is that Shvir refers to the death of the 7 early kings of Tayu whose lights broke and fell downward into Bi'ah, into the realm of Klippus and Sitrachim. A marshal for this is the soul itself. Before the neshama comes into the body, it is in total bittul to Arin Seif. Like the pasuk says, there's nothing blocking it, no thick concealment, so it is naturally bottled to its source. But once it descends and becomes enclosed in a physical body, the body hides the elikus. Then the world looks like a self-standing yesh, something separate, and the person doesn't automatically see the bittul of all worlds to the Arin Seif that is constantly creating and enlivening them. This is exactly the point of the nitzitis of Tayu after the Shvira. Once they fall and become enclosed inside the klippus of Bi'ah, the klippa darkens and covers them from every side, so the spark can't feel the gili of Arin Seif. And then the klippa can claim independence, like Pare is saying, Liya Edi V'ani Asisini, he calls himself a god. Before the Shvira, those sparks were unified with Arin Seif because Elikus was revealed within them. But after the fall, once they are wrapped in klippa, like a body covering a soul, they can't remain in the same state of bittul. That's why it's called klippa, like a shell that covers a fruit, hiding what's inside, like the shell of a nut, and there's no way to get to the fruit except by breaking the shell. So too here, to take out the sparks of kedusha from klippus that conceal them, there must be a shvira of the klippus, and that is what the Isis, Mefsim, and Makas of Mitzrayim accomplish, as will be explained. Now he brings the pasuk, the term nahar flowing from Eden is the Amshach and Ha'ara that comes from Chachma Ilav Atzilas, where Arin Seif is enclosed. Through it, Arin Seif spreads through all of Atzilas until it reaches Malchus the Atzilas, called the Gan. That is, Lahashkas is a Gan. And in Atzilas, Iver Gamayachad, it's still a world of oneness, so the river is still one. But once it reaches the head of Bria, then Mishami Pada, they begin to divide into 4 rivers, meaning the beginning of separation and differentiation. And just like physical rivers differ, one is sweeter, one is clear, one is longer, so too the upper rivers differ. For example, the channel called Pishin and the Nile, the Sar of Mitzrayim, had many nitzitis of Torah fall into it, more than fell into Bavel and so on. Now we can understand why Hashem showed Mitzrayim these mefsim. The pasuk says, "Vayedu Mitzrayim keni Hashem." Vayedu here can mean not only they will know, but also they will be broken. Like the pasuk, "Vayeda bam es anshe sukes," meaning the whole point was to break the klippa, because only when the shell is broken can the spark inside be exposed to a revelation of Arin Seif, and then it can be included back into Elikus. This is also the meaning of Sus V'rech V'ram V'hayam. The rider is the klippa riding over and covering the spark. That's the idea of Pare's chariots. When they were shattered, the sparks were revealed and included back into Arin Seif, into Ein Seif. And that also answers something people ask about Kiryas Amsov. It says there, Vayedim Mitzrayim Keni Hashem, but later it says, Lo Nisha Behem Ad Echad. So who are these people who knew? The answer is Vayedim means they were broken. And through that breaking, it was the Gilia of Arin Seif to the sparks, and those sparks came to a true knowing of Keni Hashem. So the 10 makas were not just punishments. The real point was to shatter the klippus and extract the sparks embedded within them. And Yisrael themselves didn't need any proofs. They are maminim, as it says, yamin ha'am. They believed already. The mefsim were necessary for the sparks trapped in klippa for Vayedim Mitzrayim. Now, with all this, you can understand why the first mefis was the staff turning into a serpent, because it is the introduction to everything that will happen in the 10 makas. The 10 makas are meant to break the sense of yesh, the independent ego of klippa, liya oidi, and reveal that it is not truly separate at all. The Mephis reveals to them, even though they look like klippus and sitra achra, they are receiving life force every moment from Gedusha. They are not a self-standing existence. They only appear that way because the life force reaches them through many screens and many stages of descent, so many concealments that they can imagine themselves independent. But when a higher revelation shines above those concealments, they collapse and are nullified. That is what Mephis demonstrated. This is exactly what the first Mephis, the Mata, becomes becoming a nachash shows. Mata means leaning, drawing down. Hamshacha, like shevet also means drawing down, like a kich for the shavet. So mata represents the entire hamshacha of seder shtashlos of kedusha from the highest levels down to the lowest. Tanin is the root of the clippers of Mitzrayim, as it says, Hatanim hagadol arevet b'sechi ayir. So Moshe and Aaron show Paro, the mata becomes a nachash, meaning from the hamshacha of kedusha itself, the life force is extended even into the tanin, the root of klippa, like Gileha Yordis and Malchusa B'Kol Mashallah. His sovereignty extends everywhere. Only it comes through so many contractions and concealments that the hamshacha can become so hidden that it appears to turn into a nachash, meaning it can result in the existence of the tanim hagadol who says liya odi. Then they show him the reverse. The nachash turns back into a mata, and not only that, yivla mati yaranes mataisa, meaning the source of that klippa is swallowed back into kedusha. The sparks are elevated. The whole independent existence collapses back into its source. That was the message to Pari and Mitzrayim. You are not a yash on your own. Every second your life is coming from Elikos, only that he is Kael Mistater. When he wills, the nachash becomes a mata, and the klippas become as if they never were. And this is the pattern of all for all the meifsim. Mitzrayim Kiani Havaya.
Lochein emer livnei Yisrael ani Hashem v'Hutzayti Atkam. Chazal say, "Maskidin Yetzias Mitzrayim b'leilos." We mention Yetzias Mitzrayim at night, even at night. We need to understand what is different about the miracle of Yetzias Mitzrayim more than other miracles, that we are commanded to remember it so constantly. And not only that, in every generation, a person must see himself every day, morning and evening, as if he is personally leaving Mitzrayim. The explanation is that everything has a zelu umasa. Opposite Mitzrayim of Klippa, there is a Mitzrayim in Kedusha. Just as there is a Mitzrayim below, there is a Mitzrayim above in the spiritual worlds. And just as there is Yisrael below and Yisrael above, the same pattern exists within the soul of a Jew and his avodah. The upper level of Knesset Yisrael is described as ma yofis u'ma na'amt ava b'tanugim. And in the soul below, ava b'tanugim expresses itself as the soul's joy in Hashem, simchas hanefesh b'Hashem Eisa. As it says, if it was Hashem b'simcha. It also says, Eim labanim smecha, meaning joy is born through contemplation of Arin Seif, ki eim labanim, ki eim labina tikra, through bina. When a person contemplates the revelation of Arin Seif, as it can be revealed down here, then Yismach Yisov Eisav becomes real. The soul's joy ignites into revealed love, Rish Be'esh, longing to leave its sheath, the prison of the body, so that Chedras Hashem hi mu'uzay. This is what the pasuk means. Tachas the shalei avarata, may is Hashem simcha b'tolev v'nev kol. Rev Kol refers to all spiritual pleasures, Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden Tachten. And why is the joy of mitzvahs greater even than that? Because of what one understands. Shemai refers to as Malchus. Midas Malchusi Asher Melech Shemai Nikra. This is the level called Shechina, the presence that dwells below. His name is called over. It's called King over all worlds. Through Malchus there is a relationship to the world, so that his name is called King over them. But even Shemai itself is infinitely exalted. Niskav Levade. There is no comparison between worlds and his name. Only the radiance, the height of his name, shines into Eretz and Shemayim. Eretz meaning Gan Eden Tacht, and Shemayim meaning Gan Eden Elyon, where tzaddikim enjoy Ziva Shechina. They don't enjoy Shechina itself, only its radiance. But when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, we say Ashek B'Shana b'Mitzvah in his mitzvahs themselves. Chazal say Hakadosh Baruch Hu Maniach Tefillin, Hakadosh Baruch Hu Mispal, and it says Ani Medaber B'Tzedakah, I myself. And the Zohar says Torah is Hashem himself, not just his radiance. Because Hashem is Kadosh moved all together, Almin entirely, even Ziv and Haid, already far beyond what worlds can truly relate to. As it says, Ki B'Ka Hashem Torah love, this world and the next, Gan Eden Tachten and Elyon are created from the two letters of his name alone. The Zohar says he created the world in a single thought. That's like what we say, he forms together their hearts. And Chazal say, all are seen in one glance. He sees from beginning to end, as explained elsewhere. All generations, v'shmei, the Alma, the days of Mashiach, and even Tchias HaMeitzim are all before him in one thought, like a single mental glance. And compared to a human being, one thought is nothing compared to all the thoughts a person can think in his entire lifetime, and certainly compared to his essence. So too, all these epochs are only a single radiance from his name, but Hashem himself, is exalted infinitely beyond Leis Machshavat Tfisa, and is not captured by the category of worlds at all. And yet, in Torah and mitzvahs, there is this lapshus Ein Sof Baruch Hu Ba'atzmai B'chvaydev Mamish. When a person puts his truth into his heart, he cannot help but rejoice. His heart becomes glad. He sings and rejoices because through Torah and mitzvahs, he draws into his own soul
Hashem or in Mamar something no worlds are worthy of. But this joy cannot remain only in his mind. It must in thought and understanding. Joy is revelation. It must reach the point of the heart. Like a king called Kudamas Melch Panima, but at the time of joy the king reveals himself. So too if the Simcha means bring about the revelation of Hashem, as well it becomes like Niglik Hashem in the soul, that means revelation in the heart. That is why it says the sons are the Midas. When Midas are born, revealed in the heart, the mother is the mother of children. But if everything is still hidden within the mind alone, it is still Ibor pregnancy and not yet mother of children. Now, what blocks the birth? What prevents the light of Hashem from emerging from concealment in the mind into revelation in the heart? Is the spiritual Mitzrayim, Meitzar HaGod, the constriction of the throat. The throat is the bridge between mind and heart, and there sits the three ministers, Saramashkim, Sara'ifim, Saratabachim, corresponding to the Veshet and the Vriden, meaning all the pleasures of this world, the thoughts, the preoccupations, the strategies, the endless business of Elam Hazeh. Each person has them according to his own level, but they function as the barriers, the screens separating the light of the mind from revelation in the heart. This is the pain of pregnancy. That's why all exiles and troubles are called Ibor. Chazal say in the parsha of Ibor we ask for needs. Even when Hashem is filled with anger, it is like a pregnant woman. Ki isha ubara. Gvura is called birth when the child is revealed to the heir of the world, and Chav the Mashiach are called birth pangs. It says, all pregnancy and exile exist for one purpose, that there should be ultimately be the revelation of our Hashem. And to get there must be birth pangs, meaning a person must actually feel pain and bitterness over what blocks the expansion of Hashem's light into revealed heart. Because of these barriers, the needs and preoccupations of Elam Hazeh. Then when he reaches birth and revelation and joy, the barriers fall away. All the meinim and ma'ak from all the screens become like nothing because of the joy of Hashem. Just as above, joy sweetens judgment, so too in the soul, joy dissolves every barrier, inner and outer. This is why it's called Eretz Canaan, Machnas. It subdues the external forces. They are pushed away on their own, like darkness pushed away by light. And just as during birth, all the pain exits in blood, so too it says, the barriers melt and dissolve into blood, into something with no substance and no standing at all, like v'tashlach m'tzulas yam kol chatesam. Now, just as the exile of Mitzrayim is Meitzar HaGod and separating mind and heart, so the Gula is Yitzia Meitzar HaGod, and through the voice, HaKel Kol Yaakov, the voice in the throat is what connects the Mechin of the head into revelation in the heart. How? Through the voice of Torah. Kel Kaidei Bat Torah. When a Jew calls out in Torah, he calls the light outward from concealment in the mind into revelation in the heart. That is why Chazal say, Kol Kaidei Bat Torah Kajibaruch Hu Kei. The Jews calling in Torah is on the level of Hamalik Kalam, and Hashem's calling opposite him is Sevav Kalam. And this is the meaning of Kaidei, calling something out. And this is through Torah Shebchsav, the level of Havaya, because and this is exactly what it means. Through the revelation of Havaya, specifically through Torah Shebchsav, through the Kol Yaakov, there is Yitzias Mitzrayim, the barriers and screens are nullified, and there is no longer Sivlas Mitzrayim and their labor. But this is still not the full goal. It doesn't end with Ve'etzesi Aschem alone. It continues with Ve'evesi Aschem Elo'aretz. To understand this, we look at the pasuk Eretz Tevarachava. Eretz Yisrael, in its inner meaning, corresponds to Teresh Ba'peh, and it's called Eretz Rechava. I'll explain this with the mashal of Eretz Tzvi. Just as a deer skin does not contain its flesh in a fixed measure, but expands with it. The idea is this: Teresh B'Chsav is fundamentally at the level of letters. That is why there is such an extreme precision in its letters. Nothing may be missing or added, and each letter must retain its exact form. If even a small break appears in a letter, for example, if the Yud atop the Aleph becomes detached, the Sefer Torah is invalid and no bracha is recited over it. Yet despite this precision, Torah Shebchsav does not openly reveal the intellectual structure of Torah. The deep understanding of halachas and dinim is not explicit in it. Much of the Torah consists of narratives, and even the laws are stated in narrative form. Hashem said to Moshe, speak to the Bnei Israel, and so on. From Torah Shebchsav alone, one cannot know the full practical details of mitzvahs, for example, the precise construction of tefillin, for parashas written specifically on Klav with all their halachic requirements. All of that comes only from Torah Shebchsav. The reason is that Torah Shebchsav originates the Chachma La, Chachma Nafkas. Torah Shebchsav corresponds to Chachma, while Torah Shebchsav corresponds to Chachma Tata. And the Chakim B'Benamiz, that the written Torah functions like a teacher giving a hint to a student, enabling him to understand on his own, but not yet revealing the full teaching itself. Thus, the letters of Torah Shebchsav are only Ramazim, hints, and conduits from the higher Chachma. This is why every letter is counted and fixed, no more, no less, because each letter is a precise channel for a specific higher Amshacha, but the essence of the understanding itself is not clothed in these letters. By contrast, in Torah Shebchsav, the Scholar is clothed directly in the words of halacha. Therefore, the letters are not fixed in the same way. What matters is the understanding, and as the understanding expands, the words expand with it. That's why Rashi takes us the Pesachim, and even
Kol Masha Talmud Vasik Asad the Chadash are all included in Teresh Bapeh. This is why it's called that it's Teved Chava, like the deer skin that expands with the flesh inside it. Here the letters expand according to the depth of understanding. In Teresh Bapeh, the intellectual content, the letters grow together. In Teresh B'Chsav, however, the letters do not expand; they remain fixed because they serve only as hints to higher light. This also explains why Teresh B'Chsav is called Mikra reading. One who learns it is described as Kedei B'Teira. It's calling and drawing your insight into a soul from concealment in the mind, into revelation in the heart, but it still retains a sense of separatedness, like a person calling to someone else. But in Teresh B'Apeh, Chazal say, Masnis and Malkaset, it's like a king issuing a command. There's complete unification, Chabad b'Chabad. As it says, V'yasin devar b'ficha, my word is literally in your mouth. The Maggid explains this as Ani Mishnam deberes b'ficha. The learner and the Torah become one entity through absolute bittul. This is the true realization of Dira b'Tachtonim. Although from the perspective of the light itself, the descent of Teresh B'Apeh into practical action, into agricultural laws, damages and contracts appears as a great descent. This is precisely why the pasuk says, just as a hand can lift something fallen to the ground and place it atop the head, so to Chayil. So to Biaor, the end is rooted in the beginning. This is why Teresh B'Apeh is called Eretz. It's a vessel for the revelation of Hashem's will. The ultimate revelation of Ellen is specifically in the final act. In fact, Teresh B'Apeh reveals the divine will more than Teresh B'Chsav, because from Teresh B'Chsav alone one cannot know Hashem's will in halachic detail. Only through Teresh B'Apeh does this become clear. This is the meaning of Nesati Tzvi B'Eretz Chaim. All of Hashem's desire and light is in Eretz Chaim, Teresh B'Apeh, where his light and will are revealed with greater intensity. And since Ratzon is the source of life, this is called Eretz Chaim. This is why it says, These correspond to the Midas Chesed Gvura Tiferes, because means that this level becomes a true inheritance. However, all these revelations ultimately depend on the heart. As the heart desires, so it inclines. Therefore, love must be first awakened through tefillah, so that the heart genuinely desires the revelation of Hashem. This is why Chazal instituted mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim morning and night, specifically in Parashas Sittas, awakening the heart and Shachar alone is not enough, because afterwards one turns to worldly involvement. Even one who was not involved in business, when learning Torah in the middle of action, say desire and practical halacha, the heart can again become drawn into concealment and contraction, the level of Elkim. Therefore, the love and joy must be reawakened from the heart's core to reveal Havaya once again. But even this is not enough without Teresh B'Chsav and Kel Kol Yaakov, which calls and draws divine light outward, and then through Teresh B'Apeh one reaches complete bittul v'yasin devar b'ficha, a true dwelling for Hashem, that is Havaya Elikechem. Bir alanal, to understand the root of these things, to understand the inner root of everything explained above in the language of Kabbalah, all of this revolves around the concept of yichud, of Ava, Abba V'Ima, Chachma Abina, and Zun. To explain this more precisely, above, the spiritual word of Mitzrayim is called Meitzar Mi, as explained in the Good Torah Parshas Vayeshev in the Maimer V'atan of our Seid Yosef. The throat, Garden, is called Eretz Mitzrayim because it is the narrowest place in the human body. The three mechem, when they descend and spread throughout the body, eventually expand broadly through the three lines. However, when they are passing through the throat, meaning at the stage where they descend from the head toward the body but have not yet spread, they are in an extremely constricted space. The point of constriction is the inner meaning of Mitzrayim. That point of constriction is the inner meaning of Mitzrayim. From the achirayim of this place comes the nourishment of Mitzrayim. This is the meaning of Parai, the letters rearranged to spell Hoid at the back of the neck. This explains the pasuk of Parai, Medali Ar, the Ar is the Yesod the Ima, which extends through the throat down to the chest of Zeir Anpin. Within it is clothed the Mayach of Das. Parai, the level of neck, the Eidif stands directly over the Ar. Thus, Yetzias Mitzrayim means the emergence of the Mayachim from the constriction of the throat, spreading outward into the body, and from there flowing into Malchus, which is called Eretz Teva Rechava, a broad and expansive land. In contrast, the throat remains a place of narrowness, Mitzrayim. To understand this more clearly, we must first explain what the throat represents as Eretz Mitzrayim of holiness. The throat functions as a memutza, an intermediary, the channel through which moichin descend from the head to the heart. For example, in a person, when intellect transforms into emotion, when a person understands something intellectually, and that understanding gives birth to love or desire, this transition does not happen instantaneously. First, the intellect grasps that something is good. From that intellectual grasp, love is later born in the heart. This is the transformation of intellect into emotion. The understanding in the mind gives rise to love in the heart. The emotion is not independent. It is born from the intellect. However, this transformation requires a connecting stage, and that stage is the throat. The throat is the intermediary that enables intellect to convert into emotion. Within the throat is the kana, called Sar HaMashkim, while the esophagus is the tara'if. The kana draws the moisture and life force of the intellect downward into the heart, and kana represents drawing downwards, and kanei chacham and kanei bina. It is the connecting channel that allows intellectual influence to expand into emotional expression. This intermediary state is neither intellect nor emotion. Before the intellect descends into the throat, while it is still in the brain, it exists as pure intellect, the clear understanding that something is good. After the transformation is complete, once the influence reaches the chest, where Yesod Ima ends, the intellect has already become full-fledged emotion. But in the throat itself, the influence is neither fully intellect nor fully emotion. It has already left the state of pure intellect, yet it has not reached the emotional manifestation. This is why the throat is called Mokem HaChituch, point of severance between two states. It stands in between, suspended, awaiting transformation. This is why the throat is the narrowest place in the body. Emotions, once formed, expand far more than the intellect that generated them, like a spring that emerges thin but becomes a wide river. Anger or love, once aroused, often exceeds the original intellectual cause. Likewise, intellect in the head is already broader than when it is compressed into the throat. Therefore, the throat represents maximal contraction, no longer intellect, not yet emotion. This mashal explains the spiritual structure above. Ima represents bina, intellectual comprehension. Zerampan represents the midas. Midas are born from intellect, just as emotions are born from understanding. Therefore, Yesod the Ima, the point where intellect transitions into midas, ends at the chest of Za, even though the midas include internal subdivisions resembling Chabad, Chiras, and Ehi, they are still fundamentally emotions. The upper third of the midas faces upward to receive the intellect, and that's why you say the ima ends at the chest. But before the intellect becomes actual midas, it must pass through Motza, and that is the throat. There, the Mechan begins to descend from their state of intellectual greatness into a constricted form suitable for emotional birth. That constricted state is called Mitzrayim, Meitzar Mi. The level of Mi, the intellectual root, is compressed there into extreme smallness. It is narrow compared to the intellect in the brain, and narrow compared to the emotions in the heart, which later expand powerfully. This is why the Ari explains that the throat corresponds to Aaron. Both share the same gematria. Aaron represents burning anger and harsh judgments, which emerge from constricted mechin. A child with limited intellect reacts harshly and cannot tolerate opposition, while an elder with expanded das can contain and absorb contradiction. Thus, constricted intellect produces gvura and din, the spiritual source of Aaron. Now, this level we described, where the mechin are held in the throat, which is called Mitzrayim, corresponds to the spiritual state known as Ibor. As explained in Priyatz Chaim, Shara Pesach, the state of Ibor is when Zeir Anpin is enclosed, completely contained with an ima, like a fetus in the womb. Meaning, the Ibor is precisely this. The throat stands in between, and because of that, the midas did not yet emerge into full relation into an actual leda, a birth within the heart. And below, in a person's avodah, Ibor has the same meaning. It is the state of Meitzar Hagarin, the constriction of the throat, when a person understands Hashem's greatness well, and even has love and awe, but only in concealment. The emotions remain trapped at the throat. They are not yet revealed in the heart. They remain in a state of Ibor and Helam. This also explains the pasuk Pari Emad Al Ya'ar, when Zos in a state of Ibor, which is the inner meaning of Mitzrayim, then Pari, meaning the Eidif, the back of the neck, is said to stand over the Ya'ar, which is Yesod the Ima, where the Mechan are present but still concealed. Pari stands there, blocking and suppressing birth. In Avodah, this refers to foreign desires and distractions that prevent the revelation of the emotions in the heart. Once we understand that Mitzrayim means the throat, and that exile of Mitzrayim is Zah, being held in Ibor there, we can now explain Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is laid at birth, meaning that the midas emerge into open revelation from contemplation, and through this they grow and expand, and the one that brings them out from concealment, Ibor, into revelation later, is again the throat itself, because from the throat comes the voice. The koil is what draws emotions out of concealment into revelation. As explained earlier, this later, the revelation of the midas, is itself a form of simcha, because joy is revelation. When the king is joyful, he reveals himself. This joy is described in the pasuk Mayafiso Manam Ta'avatanugim, which refers to Knesset Yisrael, called simcha, the revealed world. Amadis Galyet is also called Avatanugim, love in delight. The root of this is as follows. Leda means that Zah emerges from the womb of Ima into revelation. At that point begins the constriction of Malchus, the Nukva, which begins from behind Zah, as explained in Etzchaim, that there is an opening behind the chest of Zah through which Malchus emerges. This is the meaning of Dudi shalach yodai min hacher. Thus, Simcha Knesset Yisrael, the revealed world, comes into being after the birth of Zah. When Yesod Ima becomes revealed at the chest of Zah, which is the birth of the Midas, then the formation of Malchus begins. However, Malchus itself has two levels, external and internal, as explained in the Zohar at the beginning of Bereshis. The external aspect of Malchus, which descends into Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah to give them life, is the level of Shoshana among thorns. The inner aspect of Malchus, which does not descend at all, is called Rayasi. When Etzchem speaks about the birth of Malchus from the opening behind Zah, this refers to external Malchus, the outer aspect of speech. But the inner Malchus, the inner dimension of speech, is rooted in the inner dimension of Zah. This inner Malchus is called Kalas Moshe because Moshe is Balad Matanisa. This level is also called Knesset Yisrael because it emerges from the inner Zah, which is the source of all Jewish souls. About this level it says, Mayafiso Manaam Ta'aba B'Tanugim, and this is the inner meaning of Simcha. Now, as explained earlier, the force that brings the midas from Iber to Leda is the throat, through the voice. This is the meaning of Hakel Kol Yaakov, specifically reading the Torah. Through the Kriya of Teresh B'Chsav, which is called Mikra, the emotions are drawn from concealment into revelation, which is why it is called Mikra, from calling. The voice calls the midas out from Iber into Leda, and this works specifically through Teresh B'Chsav, because the difference between Teresh B'Chsav and Teresh B'Peh is that Teresh B'Chsav corresponds to Mechin Abba, while Teresh B'Peh corresponds to Mechin Ima. Therefore, in Teresh B'Chsav, there is absolute precision in the letters counted, measured exact, because the letters are Ramazim hints to the quality of the divine flow. Even if one understands more than what is written, one may not add a single letter. This is because Teresh B'Chsav comes from Chacham, which is Kima B'Remiza. Its letters hint to the nature of the flow. Aleph hints to Chacham, and Malchus base hints to three lines. Gimel hints to Gimel Dalam, Yesod, given to Malchus, and so on, including the crowns on the letters, all hints to the nature of the divine transmission. Thus, the letters of Teresh B'Chsav are not the revelation of the intellect itself, but garments and hints. Even the revealed narratives are called Levusha that I send desire. The inner laws and secrets, Gufid Torah, Nishmas that I said dozen, are not openly revealed, only hinted. This is why Teresh B'Chsav cannot expand its letters, because Chachma does not reveal itself openly in letters. Expansion of letters belongs to Bina. By contrast, Teresh B'Peh is called Teresh Simecha because it comes from Bina, from understanding, just as the drop from the father develops into a full body within the mother. So to a single verse in Teresh B'Chsav expands into entire tractates, Rashi, Taisus, and all halachic discussions. Therefore, Teresh B'Peh is called Eretz Teva Rechava, a good and expanding land. This is why Teresh B'Peh is also called Eretz HaTzvi. A deer skin does not contain the flesh in a fixed way. When the flesh is removed, the skin contracts. But as long as the flesh is inside, it keeps growing, and the skin grows with it. That is the mashal for Teresh B'Peh because it's Mechin De'ima, the mind of understanding, where the light and the letters are revealed together, or as Vikli. So as the understanding increases, the letters increase automatically. You see this clearly. In the Medrash, the letters are few because the understanding is still short and condensed. But in the Gemara, the understanding analysis becomes far broader, and therefore the combinations of letters multiply tremendously. In the language used here, Mishnah relates to more to Yitzira Talmudis in Bria, where Chabad of Atilas can be enclosed. This is why it is called Eretz Teva Rechava, a land that keeps expanding without limit. Kol Masha Talmud Vasik Asik Chadash is included in Teresh B'Peh, and as the understanding expands, so do the letters. This is also why Teresh B'Peh does not demand the same strict precision in the exact wording as Teresh B'Chsav. The Mishnah can say something one way, a Brisa can phrase it differently, and Gemara can phrase it differently again, because the core of Teresh B'Peh is the Havana and Asag of the letters expand and vary according to the understanding. All this is because the Teresh B'Peh understanding is revealed inside the letters Mechin De'ima, whereas Teresh B'Chsav is Mechin De'Abba, where the letters are mainly Ramazim, so the Ramazim must be exactly fixed and they don't change because someone understands more. This connects to another point. Bina is also called V'cheves Hanar, the wide expanses of the river. The true root, expansion, and breadth is even higher than Chachma. From Keit Shuyah, the level of Kesser above Chachma. In that sense, too, Teresh B'Peh, which is Bina and expansion, has a root above Teresh B'Chsav. Now, just as Bina Teresh B'Peh is called Eretz Teva Rechava because its letters expand, so too this applies in a very direct way to Malchus, the Nukva of Zeirampim, which is also called Eretz Teva Rechava. In truth, Malchus is the main root of Teresh B'Peh. The Kenizer says Malchus Per Teresh B'Peh Kerinila, and this is hinted in the pasuk Chachmais B'chutz. Two wisdoms, Chachma Elah, which is Teresh B'Chsav, and Chachma Tata, which is Teresh B'Peh. The lower wisdom is called Eretz Teva Rechava because it expands greatly according to the degree that Aaron Seif is drawn into it. And here Malchus is unlike the other spheres. In the Ari's language, Malchus is unique because it undergoes many changes. Sometimes it expands greatly, and sometimes it contracts dramatically. These changes are not abstract, they are changes in the kalim of Malchus themselves. Sometimes Malchus is only a point beneath Yesod. Sometimes it grows to the level of Netzach Yesod. Sometimes to Chagas. Sometimes it expands until it is equal in stature. All these changes in Malchus's kalim depend on one thing: the degree of revealed light from Aryan Seif within it. When the revelations of light diminishes, the Kli itself diminishes until it becomes only a point. This is the meaning of Shcheirani, a state of contraction, a single point. When the revelation increases, the light increases precisely in proportion to the light. This is why Malchus is called Adatzvi, the skin expanding with the flesh. The expansion and contraction of the skin reflects the expansion and contraction of the flesh. This is a sign of Malchus's nature. Its kalim expand and contract based on the iris. This is not how it is with the other partsufim. In Abba and Ima, there is no expansion and contraction of kalim. There is no such change at all. Even in Zerampa, the midas themselves don't expand and contract as kalim. Rather, they either receive meichen, the unika, or they don't. But the kalim of the Zohar are not fluctuating the way Malchus fluctuates. Malchus itself changes in stature and structure because its kalim are totally dependent on the iris. That itself is a special quality. Malchus' kalim are in complete bittul to the iris. This is why it is called Eretz Teva Rechava. It expands according to the increase of light, and this explains something deeper: the advantage of engaging a Torah Sheba'al Peh is even beyond the level of Ava B'Tanugim, because joy and Ava B'Tanugim are experienced as something. The heart feels the delight, it senses the simcha, and its revealed emotional state. It is a form of yesh. But Torah Sheba'al Peh, precisely because the light is concealed and the light is not felt as personal sweetness, can be higher. It expresses ma, true bittul, without self-feeling. This is why the pasuk says, "Vochet Etzchem mitachat sulas Mitzrayim," the exit, meaning the midas being released from the throat into revelation through the koil of Torah Shebachsav, and only afterwards it says, "Vehevesi Etzchem el haaretz," bringing into haaretz, meaning Torah Sheba'al Peh, which has this additional elevation as Eretz Tzvi Teva Rechava. Now we can explain the phrase "Noda'ti Tzvi ba'aretz hachaim," which is yet another level in Torah Sheba'al Peh, and the second reason it's called Eretz Tzvi. Here Tzvi means ratzon, will, as in Tzivyon Nivro, or Veloy Avisan, which Targum renders Veloy Tzivisan. It can also mean beauty and splendor, but here the main sense is desire, will, and Chafetz is the inner dimension of ratzon. The point is that Hashem's ratzon is clothed and revealed specifically in Eretz HaChaim, meaning Torah Sheba'al Peh. This is the additional advantage of Torah Sheba'al Peh over Torah Shebachsav. Because Torah Shebachsav is mikra, the meichen of Abba, the Chachma, but it is there not such direct. But in there, it is not such direct revelation of Ratzon Helyon, which is higher than Chachma. From Torah Shebachsav alone, you cannot actually issue a halachic ruling to declare a final psak, Zakai or Chayev, Asur or Mutter. Torah Shebachsav gives the divine wisdom, but not the revealed decisive will in practice. In Torah Sheba'al Peh, however, the Ratzon Helyon is clothed in the very structure of halachic rulings, Asur and Mutter. That is Ratzon. This is why it says, "Noda'ti Tzvi ba'aretz hachaim." The revelation of Ratzon Helyon is specifically in Torah Sheba'al Peh, and the reason is the fundamental principle: Seif Ma'isa Machshav Tchila, not Tchilas Seifan. Malchus is called Eishes Chayil at his Bail, and also at its Chayfetz, because Ratzon is revealed specifically there. This is why even within Torah Sheba'al Peh, halachas and psak are higher in certain sense than a gather, since psak expresses Ratzon more directly, as Chazal note in various places. At the same time, even with those higher advantages, Eretz Teva Rechava and the revelation of Ratzon, Torah Sheba'al Peh is also lower in a different sense, because it descends into very physical topics and speaks in the language of this world. But that is exactly why the pasuk says, "Vehevesi Etzchem el haaretz asher nasasi es yadi." It is like a hand lifting a thing that lies low on the ground. The hand can raise it above the head, even place it on the head. So too, Malchus Torah Sheba'al Peh, even though it is enclosed in Gashmius, Hashem lifts it above Chachma Ilah, because it becomes a teres by a crown over Zeiranpin. That's because of what was just explained in Noda'ti Tzvi ba'aretz hachaim. Ratzon is revealed there, and Keser is higher than the meichen of the head. This is also why the meaning of Asher Nasasi Es Yadi, my hands, refer to the arms of Arach, Chagas Arach, which prepare Malchus. As it says, Mikdash Adnai Kenenu Yodecha. This is why it says, Vayisi Ateres Tefez Tznif Melucha B'Kafa Elikecha. The royal turban Malchus becomes a crown, a teres baila held in the palm, meaning drawn and supported by those hands, the arms of Arach. And this is why it is said, La Seisel Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. The others correspond to the Chagas of Zah, and it is a special elevation for them that the land is given to them, because the land, Torah Sheba'al Peh, Malchus, is a crown over Zah, includes another depth. The light is concealed within it. This is the highest form of bittul, where the bittul is not even felt. That can be higher even than Ava B'Tanugim, because there the light is felt and feeling it's already a kind of something. But in Teresh Ba'Peh, when the learning reaches the level of Aniyah Mishnah Medaberes B'Ficha, is bittul without self-feeling. This is Mastis and Malkusa. This is why it says to give it to Avraham, because Avraham's love and Teresh Ba'Peh is higher than the love of the light. All this exists not only above, but within a person's avodah every day, because Jew contains these structures within himself. This is why we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim morning and evening. First, there is the Galus Mitzrayim stage, the Eber state, the constriction of the throat where the midas are held back. Then through Amar Livni Yisrael and Hashem, meaning the engagement with Teresh B'Chsav, called Teresh Savaya, there is Leda, birth, Mikra, the calling, drawing the midas out from concealment into revelation. But just as physical birth can't happen without birth pain, so too here a person must feel pain and sorrow over what prevents the revelation of Shem Havaya in his heart. That pain produces the birth, the joy, and delight of Em Abanim Samecha. Above, this is the birth of Zah. Below it is the revelation of love and awe in the soul. And like the blood that exits during birth, the foreign thoughts are pushed away through that breakthrough. Then comes the Adet above. That means the flow of Zah into Malchus, called Adet Canaan, which subdues the externals and sweetens Din, because once there is birth and Godlos, the external forces no longer have nourishment. Their nourishment comes specifically from Ibra and Katnas, as explained elsewhere. Below the land is Teresh Ba'Peh, level of Eretz Chavetz, Eretz Tzvi, lifted by Hashem Associates Yadi. And since each day new Meichin are drawn above, and likewise in the soul, a person becomes like a new creation. Therefore, each day requires this daily Yetzias Mitzrayim, the drawing of Meichin into midas through the throat, through Teresh B'Chsav, and then the Teresh Ba'Peh, the true Eretz Chavetz, as explained.